Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to cover Chapter 5.
This is part 2.
Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the key dietary planning principles. I use this acronym ABCVM to help you remember the key factors that you'll need to maintain a healthy diet. The first principle is adequacy. Adequacy means eating all of the vitamins and minerals. That means choosing foods that are nutrient dense, foods like fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Next, balance. Balance is crucial in a healthy diet. It is important to balance carbohydrates. We've already seen that carbohydrates should be around 50% of your total caloric intake. But you must balance those carbohydrates with fat intakes, which you need for hormones and nervous system function, and proteins, which you need for muscular function. Next up, kilocalorie control. Basically, you need to know your basal metabolic rate. Athletes need to intake more food because they've got higher muscle mass. All people need to eat adequate kilocalories, or you'll become sick very rapidly. Variety, perhaps one of the most important factors in planning a healthy diet. By eating a variety of foods, you're going to do two things. You're going to provide adequacy in terms of all the vitamins and minerals that are being provided by that variety of different types of food choices. Second, you're going to provide balance because you're going to eating a variety of foods. You're going to be getting a variety of sources of proteins and fats and carbohydrates, particularly those high fiber carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates. Last but not least is moderation. Now, this is not avoidance. Fad diets will tell you to avoid things. This is moderation. There are some things in our diets that we should moderate, keep to a low level in our diet. That's not eliminate. Let's just keep them to a low level. What do I mean by moderation? Well, let's take a look at it. For solid fats, that would be saturated fats. Keep those to under 10% of your total caloric needs. Added sugars, again, look for added sugars. This is not sugars in fruits or sugars in vegetables or sugars in natural products. This is sugars that have been added to the foods that you eat, like your latte, macchiato, chocolate covered something. Those have added sugars, and that's what the sugars that you want to reduce in your diet. Keep those under 10% of your total caloric intake. And lastly, salt. Americans tend to eat way too much salt. Reducing that number is always going to be important. Adequacy. Again, that reflects getting enough of the vitamins and minerals. If one has an inadequate diet, sickness will quickly follow through vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Inadequate diets can result in things like malnutrition. This can be seen often in eating disorders or in starvation. The WHO estimates around 20 million people face severe food insecurity in the Horn of Africa, but there are many people in the Bay Area in California that also suffer food insecurity. That number is estimated at around 1 million people. Balance. It's really important to balance the different kinds of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats in your diet. These are the numbers, the acceptable macronutrient distribution ranges that the USDA recommends. Carbohydrates should be in that 45 to 65% of your daily calorie range. Fat should be in 20 to 35% of your daily caloric intake. And protein should make up 10 to 35% of your daily calories. Now, athletes will probably want to be at the higher end of the protein intakes and perhaps at the lower end of the fat intakes. But carbohydrate intake should be always in that 45 to 65% range, around about half of your kilocalories. Let's take a closer look at carbohydrates. There are three kinds of carbohydrates that you'll see talked about. Sugars, which we know the USDA recommends moderating, keeping below 10% of our total caloric intake. Starches are simple starches, refined carbohydrates, things like rice and pasta and bread. We want to moderate those. We want to keep our intakes of those probably under around 100 grams of those at any one meal, although spreading them out throughout the day. And then complex carbohydrates, which any amount of is helpful. Vegetables, whole grains, these are fruits. These are excellent sources of complex carbohydrates, and you should increase those in your diet to make sure you're getting at least 37 to 40 grams of fiber in your diet. Most Americans do not reach that number, but that's a healthy choice. The balance between fiber and complex carbohydrates, including fibers and refined carbohydrates, should be around 50%. So you want to make sure that you're leaning hard towards whole grains and foods like that. What is, when I talk about whole grain, what do I actually mean? A whole grain, this shows a whole grain wheat kernel. The whole grain is the entire kernel of wheat, including the bran, which is the outside, the germ, and the endosperm, which are the insides. The bran contains a lot of fiber, B group vitamins, many phytochemicals and minerals, really important. The germ contains some healthy antioxidants, including vitamin E, some of the B group vitamins, whereas the endosperm just contains the starchy part. Refined grains, refined grains, things like white bread, typically only contain the starchy portion of the grain. Whereas whole grain breads or whole grain foods typically contain both the bran and the germ, and this is a much healthier choice. Okay, let's talk about fats. Fats are used for long-term energy storage. They're also used for insulation of our organs and nerve insulation. And fats are essential as hormones for communication and for making up cell membranes. Fats are mostly made up of carbon and hydrogen with just a little bit of oxygen. You can see some illustrations of fats here. You can see oils, and you can see butter and lard, both of which are hard at room temperature. Saturated fats are hard at room temperature, and these are the ones we want to moderate. Let's have a look at the chemical difference between a saturated fat and a polyunsaturated fat, which would be an oil at room temperature. Saturated fats, all of the carbons are occupied with hydrogens. There are no double bonds. This creates a type of fat that is hard at room temperature and indeed is going to be hard inside of your body. Polyunsaturated fats, on the other hand, like this mazola oil, have these double bonds, and these double bonds create kinks in the structure of the polyunsaturated fats. These fats are actually heart healthy, and they're good for you, particularly fats like omega-3 fats. Proteins are made up of amino acids. There are 20 amino acids, of which 9 are essential amino acids, which means there are 9 amino acids that your body cannot make and must be supplied from the diet. So it is essential to have protein in your diet, and you want to be getting at least 15% of your calories from proteins. There are non-essential amino acids that your body can synthesize. Some complete protein sources are things like whey protein or chocolate milk, fish or eggs or chicken, pork, nuts. All of these are excellent sources of all of the amino acids. Kilocalories, really important to balance the kilocalorie or energy intake with your energy output. Sometimes people get out of balance here and they're eating too many kilocalories, particularly when they're eating calorie-dense foods like fats. On the other hand, sometimes athletes get out of balance here as well by not taking in enough calories to support their athletic endeavors, using too much energy. So you can see how that illustrated here. At the top, stable body weight indicates that a person is ingesting the correct number of calories for the output of calories. On the other hand, if somebody is eating too many calories and burning too few calories, inevitably there will be weight gain. And if a person is burning more calories than they are ingesting, there will be inevitable weight loss. Variety, one of the most important factors in our diet. Variety is important because it improves adequacy and it improves balance. We need 14 different vitamins and 15 different minerals. These are essential. Here is an illustration of the vitamins that we need to take in. You don't need to know these numbers, but it varies throughout life. And it's very hard to keep track of all of these vitamins if you try to write them all down or keep them in an app or so forth. It's almost impossible to track all of these vitamins or indeed all of the minerals. Here is an example of all of the minerals that you need. Okay, 15 different minerals. Because it's impossible to track 29 different vitamins and minerals, it's much easier and much more practical to just increase the variety of your diet. By increasing the variety of foods that you're eating, you're exposing your body to all of the vitamins and all of the minerals that it needs to extract to keep you healthy. So eat a large variety of different kinds of fruits, vegetables, whole grains throughout the day and throughout the weeks and months, and you will naturally be able to ingest all the vitamins and minerals that you need. Moderation, it's important to moderate added sugars, saturated fats, those are the fats that are hard at room temperature, and salt. And you can see an example here of foods that one would moderate, things like pizza and French fries and burgers and so forth. We want to keep those foods to a moderate level, maybe not eating the whole pizza, maybe eating a slice or two of pizza, and then adding some fruits and vegetables on the side or some whole grains of some sort. One of the best tools for planning a healthy diet is found on the USDA website. It's called Choose MyPlate. You can find it at www.choosemyplate.gov. Go there, enter in your numbers, and you can very rapidly find information regarding how best to balance your food intakes. This would be what the website looks like. You can start the quiz to find out what the USDA recommendations are for you. I thoroughly recommend you do this just to see where your diet falls in comparison to the USDA recommendations. You'll get a result something like this, a MyPlate plan. This is for someone who requires 2,000 calories a day. Your caloric intake requirements may be higher or lower.